You know, the way Australia's government works can seem pretty complicated, right? But what if I told you that the whole system, the entire blueprint, is really built on just two big borrowed ideas? Today, we're going to break it all down.
So, I want you to imagine something. It's the late 1800s. You've got 6 separate British colonies, all on one massive continent. The big challenge is, how do you convince them all to join up, to team up and create one single unified country? That was the massive puzzle Australia's founders had to solve. And do you know what their answer was? It was a remix. Seriously. They didn't invent a whole new system from the ground up. Instead, they took a huge idea from the United States, this concept of federation, which is all about power sharing, and they blended it with a core idea from the United Kingdom, the Westminster system, which gives us responsible government. Okay, so here's our game plan. We're going to start with that power-sharing idea, then look at the 3 branches that actually use that power. We'll peek inside Parliament to see who the lawmakers are, follow the journey of an idea into a law, and then we'll tie it all together and talk about why this whole setup really matters. Right. Let's dive into our first big idea, federation. At its heart, this is all about how you divide up power across the country, making sure that no one government in one place can control absolutely everything. So before 1901, you didn't really have Australia as we know it. You just had 6 separate colonies, each doing its own thing. But they started to realize, hey, we'd be a lot stronger if we were together, especially when it comes to things like national defense and trade. So on January 1st, 1901, they made it official, they federated, and the Commonwealth of Australia was born. And this is exactly what federation means. It's a deal. They created a brand new central government, the Commonwealth, to handle the big national stuff. But the original colonies, which we now call states, they got to keep their power to manage their own local business. Now, this power sharing isn't random. It's spelled out very clearly in the Constitution. First, you've got exclusive powers. These belong only to the national government. Think big stuff like printing money or raising an army. Then you have concurrent powers, which are shared. For example, both the Commonwealth and the states can make laws about marriage. And finally, there are residual powers, basically everything else not mentioned, like running schools, hospitals, and the police, and those stay with the states. But what happens when a state law and a Commonwealth law bump into each other in one of those shared areas? Who wins? Well, the Constitution has a tiebreaker rule built right in. Section 109 says, flat out, the Commonwealth law wins. This just makes sure we have a consistent national rule when it really counts. You've probably also heard about Australia's territories, right? So what's the difference between them and the states? Well, think of it this way. The states are like the original founding partners of Australia. Their power comes directly from the Constitution. It's guaranteed. The territories, on the other hand, well, their power is more like it's on loan from the national parliament. And that means, in theory, the Commonwealth government could override their laws. Okay, let's switch gears to our second big idea. This one is less about where the power is and more about what kind of power it is. This is the separation of powers, and you can just think of it as a 3-way safety lock on how the country is run. It's actually pretty straightforward. These 3 branches each have one clear job. First, you have the legislature. That's the parliament, and their job is to make the laws. Second, you've got the executive. That's the government of the day, and their job is to put those laws into action. And finally, the judiciary. That's the court system. Their job is to interpret the laws and make sure they're applied correctly. Now, here's that bit of British influence I was talking about. See, unlike in the US, Australia's system has a bit of an overlap. The executive, so the Prime Minister and all the ministers, they are also members of the legislature, of Parliament. This is what we call responsible government, because it means the government has to answer directly to the Parliament. The judiciary, though, it stays completely 100% separate. It's the independent umpire.
All right, so let's zoom in on that first branch, the legislature or parliament. Because honestly, this is the part of government that most of us see and hear about every day. It's where our elected reps do their thing.
Australia's parliament has 2 houses. First up is the House of Representatives, sometimes called the People's House. This is where government is formed, and the number of members from each state is based on population. Then you've got the Senate. The Senate is designed to be a powerful house of review, and its most important feature is that it represents all the states equally. Every single state gets 12 senators, doesn't matter if it's big or small. And that brings us to the magic number. To actually run the country, a political party or a group of parties needs to win a majority of seats in the House of Representatives. There are 151 seats in total, so that means you need to win at least 76 of them to form government. So we've got the people, and we've got the places. But how does an idea actually become a real, binding law for the entire country? Let's follow that journey.
Well, it all starts as something called a bill, which is just a proposal for a new law. That bill has to be debated, sometimes changed, and then it has to be passed by a majority vote in both the House of Representatives and the Senate. That's key. Once both houses agree on the exact same wording, it goes to the Governor General for what's called royal assent. That's the final signature that officially turns the bill into an act of Parliament. It's now the law.
Okay, so we've covered a lot. Federation, separation of powers, the two houses of Parliament. But why is it set up like this? What's the point of all these different layers and rules? Well, when you boil it all down, it comes back to one absolutely critical principle: creating a system of checks and balances. Power is split up geographically through federation, so the national government in Canberra can't just run everything. And it's also split up by job, functionally, between the three branches. So the people who make the laws, the people who carry them out, and the courts can all keep an eye on each other. The whole thing is designed to stop any one person or group from getting way too much power.
And all of that leaves us with a final, pretty big thought. This whole framework was designed for a brand new country way back in 1901. And look, it's been incredibly stable and it's lasted a long time. But as Australia keeps changing and facing new challenges, you have to ask the question, is this century-old blueprint still the best one for the Australia of today and for the Australia of tomorrow?